I cannot wait to see what we have in store in Game 2, starting with the Battleground. Where are we headed?
Cursed Hollow. Tempo Storm selection, no surprise there. Tempo Storm has been rather, comfortable just picking up Cursed Hollow. They have changed their priority in phase number 2 away from some of the other maps and higher onto the world of Cursed Hollow. One that macro play and team fighting are still very relevant. Team fighting a bit more than that of macro, and looking at the last game, if you were to play it out, Tempo, slightly better team fighting. Tempo in the macro game, I would say quite a bit larger, so upper hand here to Tempo Storm for sure.
We'll have to see about the drafting, but globals could definitely play a big part once again on Cursed Hollow. Maybe, I don't know how much false ad we've had from either of these teams. It doesn't seem as much as some of the other teams in North America, but definitely the Dahaka.
Yeah, the Dahaka, it's Freedom, I feel like, was slightly pushed in the last draft to finally flex outward, which we heard them talking about, and it was not as impressive. It wasn't bad, though. Like, for a lot of the teams that got pushed as hard as Freedom did, it kind of crumbles quickly. They put up an amazing game, still even throughout that, but it is something that, with time, they'll be able to hone out some of those small issues that they ended up providing, but for now, it might be possibly, it's like too much to deal with. Tempo Storm is too much to deal with right now. I have confidence if this was like, a month, 2 months away and Freedom kept going, I might not say the same thing, but for now, Tempo looks real clean.
I think I will agree with you if Tempo goes up 2-0.
Okay,
I'm reserving judgment until then, just because there were some dang close fights.
There were some. There was
man.
Impressive play from both sides, for sure.
Yeah, and Dansky had played a great Genji, and we know that he can play a great Genji when they want to have cure on other heroes.
And we've highlighted the fact that possibly, Brightwing could have been a bit of a questionable isolation there for Freedom.
It's the only time you'll ever hear me say that.
Okay, well, I actually said it. You didn't even have to agree to it. But now that you did, everybody knows you're a Brightwing hater, and I'm sorry you're exposed as a liar and a cheat. Tempo Storm deciding what they want to ban as Freedom bailed on the Uther.
Tass or Genji?
I think Tassadar. He's a really scary guy. Tassadar on his own isn't scary. It's just everything else that Tassadar is really good with. Also known as 95% of the heroes in the game that are viable.
If you saw somebody just all of a sudden show up in front of you and yell force wall in your face and all of a sudden have a wall behind you, I'd be scared.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just popping out of nowhere. Because he can stealth. We don't get to see offensive stealth, but he actually could pop up in your face like a ghost, lock you in. Kind of like Leoric.
And shoot lasers
That's
at you.
Surprisingly Leoric-esque. He even has kind of a weird laser called Drano. I don't know. Tempo banned the Abathur. Not wanting to deal with that? Wow, I thought for sure Tempo would want that as a response to the Genji on the other side. So then instead, what do they have in plan and in store for us here, Gilly?
Well, looking at what they prefer on Cursed Hollow, it has been an Abathur ban.
Yeah.
Actually, that's the one Battleground. But otherwise, a Greymane Abathur. Greymane still potentially. They banned Abathur, so they could postulate that Team Freedom would be happy to get their Genji again, which means Tassadar is still a thing.
And Tassadar is a thing. Do you go into the Tracer right away? Do you go with more of like an Illidan? Do you wait it out, go Tass Arthas? I personally really like that transition from them. Wouldn't be surprised, but Stitches has been such a big deal too. We got one? Neither. It's going to be the Dahaka. More focus into the global, maybe possibly because that Abathur ban from themselves up in the secondary ban phase. It's starting to make a bit more sense here.
Team Freedom now. Cursed Hollow, they've only played a couple of games, but they have been willing to play the Tracer task before on it. So it's likely that Tempo could just be trying to force a Tracer ban. Meanwhile, I mean, it's Freedom and Stitches is up, so...
Yeah, well, Stitches what? Stitches what? He doesn't sit very well, actually. Does he stand very well? He doesn't really stand very well either. He'll just hang out, I guess. I don't know why.
You're on Stitches patrol over there.
Somebody took away his hooks, though. He actually comes with hooks. I don't know if you knew that. It's pretty neat. Stitches what? We haven't figured out the second pick. If there's no Stitches here, I'm going to be sad that I picked this up.
Stitches mouth.
Probably.
Illidan Stitches.
Okay. Which then means we got the Arthas ban most likely for Freedom, or at least as a now something they might want to be attending to, considering Tempo Storm has been very likely to be pick of the Arthas throughout all of phase number 2. And it works
You think
really
they
well.
have to ban Arthas over Tracer even?
Yeah. I mean...
What about...
You don't have to. So this is like, you choose what you think your team is best with dealing with in that type of circumstance. Like, Task Tracer is very good, but it's not as good as it used to be because the nerfs that came into Tassadar directly impacted that duo more than others. So, because her effective HP is lesser than most of the enabled targets because she is just squishier than them because she's higher mobility. So, like, Illidan was impacted, yes, but it's not as likely as that of, like, the Tracer and wasn't hurt as bad to where I'm kind of okay with letting you have that as long as I don't have my Illidan be useless the whole game.
What about Cassia?
That might be a better focus than all. Or what if they disagree with both and they just go Ariel and say, screw these analysts and what they have to say about it?
Man, those two picks together, Tastahaka, have put Freedom in kind of a pickle, and you can tell just by how much they are switching back and forth trying to figure out who to ban here.
In a bit of a pickle, Dick. I know the move call. Okay. You're in a bit of a pickle, Dick? No? All right, well then, one day you'll figure it out. Cassia banned away. Then remove it. And so it's worth more than the Arthas for themselves.
We've seen some Illidan's deal with Arthas before. Yeah, I just felt like it was the best of, the lesser, they're willing to deal with the lesser of two evils?
Yeah.
Except like 5.
Except there's like 20.
Yeah.
Yeah, a billion evils. So then, I assume this is an Arthas. Greymane is available. Would be a decent pickup for them. I feel like I'm missing something wild here for Tempo. Do they even want to go into the Tracer route now that the Illidan's on the other side? They have to decide here. They did into the last game, so you would assume so. But does Tempo... Are they going to mix it up? They're taking a long time if this is, in fact, the Tracer route.
Definitely need another warrior, whether it's Arthas or Tracer Brightwing. June Brightwing!
A lot of Brightwing here in North America.
It's been a while. It's June's first Brightwing.
Yeah.
Of Phase 2. We've seen it before.
He, in fact, has played the Brightwing hero in his competitive career.
Quite a lot.
A very all-in composition for Tempo Storm here. A lot banked onto the Psalm there. So, what do we see from Freedom to be able to deal with that? I assume, again, Collusion's Malfurion. We're down on the Uther. It's synergized with the Stitches, but it doesn't give them... No, I would like the Rhaegar a lot more, actually. Because of the Illidan Genji need to be effective.
Agreed. Agreed on the Rhaegar.
I'm missing... There's a hero that deals with the situation really well, and I can't think what it is. Is it Diva? No. Not specifically for this team. What am I... Wow, a Karazim and a Li Ming. I have never seen a team man up harder than I've just watched Freedom do. You know what I mean? Just wow. Like, you know, like, he's just puffing out the chest with Tempo Storm, and they said, not today, boys. Went ahead and just blew out and just was like, bigger chest, because we're going to punch your face to death like Tracer. You think you're going to move in with your Polybomb Tracer kill composition, and they're like, nope, Karzim's going to be punching, Illidan's going in, Genji's going in, and Li Ming's getting resets. We don't care.
This reminds me of when MVP Black would pick. I knew that was going to be it. I knew they were going to Chen Dahaka. I knew it. I freaking knew it.
Did you know it, Gil?
Yes.
Thanks.
I knew it.
I just needed to know if you knew it. I
have so many heroes circled. The circle for me means like who to watch in fights, and it's just like, I'm everybody. I'm so excited. Anyway, it reminds me of MVP Black drafting Karazim versus Tracer after they do the damage and force the recall. 1, 2, 3 dash all the way in. Let's see it, Collusion. We have a tweet before we get into this game. I am just so pumped, it's ridiculous. Let's see what it is. You can tweet using the hashtag HGC to let us know what you think about this series. You know my thoughts. What are your thoughts?
What are my thoughts?
I don't know where the tweet is.
I don't know where it is either, but honestly, your excitement levels alone.
I know, I got so pumped.
The Ghost Hots The first game between Tempo and Team Freedom was insane. I am so ready for a 5-game series. You know what? I completely agree with you.
Yep.
I'm ready for this to go all the way because these teams are so well matched with one another. My tie is completely upset and it's triggering me. No, they are so close in competition. I completely agree with you. I'm ready to get into it.
So am I. What do you think of the drafts?
I like Team Freedom's more.
Okay.
I feel like Tempo Storm took a lot all into the Tracer route, and because Freedom, again, they decided, like, we aren't going to back down. They actually just went more offensive into it and being like, we'll track you farther. The problem, Chen is a bit of a weird one. If he is impactful enough and big enough to draw aggro from anybody, it's a winning case for Tempo. But if everyone on the side of Freedom just goes, who's Chen? And they can with this type of composition, I think that Tempo is really going to struggle in team fights. Like a blow for blow, same talent tier, I like what Freedom's got going on, but the macro and everything else of Tempo looks a little bit more smooth, and I expect them to get experience just through front walls and stuff a lot more.
Well, let's get to it. Game number 2 between Team Freedom and Tempo Storm. Tempo Storm currently leads the series 1-0.
Feels like a kid in a candy shop
I
right now.
know. What is with me?
It's going to be Iron Fist, no wild anything there. For anybody who may be wondering what Gilly was trying to talk about when talking about MVP Black, is specifically Mary Day's thought process on why you take Karzim into Tracer. And it's because his damage output is so very high, and her probability, she wants to go in and one-shot somebody. Divine Palm deals with that. She's very squishy. She's going to go in and try and make that damage happen. Once you're at 16, Way of 100 Fists comes in, you dash into her as she's dashing into your team, you force a free recall, or you punch her to death, force the recall, and then once that happens, you keep chasing her down. 2 more dashes afterwards, and that is 1 dead Tracer.
Yeah, my favorite play out of Mary Day's history was using the triple dash in order to secure a kill. And I think it was on a Tracer, but even if not, that he played that so well into a Tracer, and sometimes he'd get caught and killed, like by an Uther, but man, it was fun to watch.
Who cares about Uthers? You know, they're just a bunch of mean bullies anyways. Getting everybody armor, making them invuln. Laning phase looks like it's a 2-1-2 option for Freedom. Having Genji as the solo, it's more of a placeholder, not optimal, but Brightwing is doing the same through mid. Both poor laners want to be somewhere else, but just unable to give up that experience.
Fury is shown here, but Tracer and Tassadar have not. Fury's just hanging out, killing the minions. They push out a little bit.
Karzim, I don't believe, is shown on the map at all. He's sitting behind the wall. So they have no idea where the 5th member of Freedom is. But neither do they know about the Tracer. This is really cool. So it's like more of what it is making it difficult to judge who is the target to be able to go for. Now Psalm is going to be able to match them now that we see the reveal of Collusion. Second time Collusion's tried to abuse Fog in the series. Gotta respect it.
Definitely so. All the talents that we see as normal. This time Kira is still getting Immolation. Will help him out with being able to kill minions as fast as possible if he goes into the hunt later on. We've seen both heroics from Kira in the past, but also in helping him be able to be the murking hero of the team.
Looks like he's going to try and back out, go to the Giants. Tracer is immediately collapsing behind him, going to be an annoying problem. Zugrug looks like he's backing out with Dansky. At least Dansky's going to be able to attend here. Here he goes. So dismount. Dash 1. That's all we need. Psalm's out. Giants picked up here for Freedom, but he's not done. He's questioning what if he wants to go and be that pest.
That is the benefit of Team Freedom, that they were able to make sure that they still were able to get their Giants. And Tempo Storm did not make that rotation. At least not yet, prior to the first tribute being spawned. Earth Ally is going to be so nice for the team, maybe even a reason for Team Freedom to pick up Collusion, or pick up Karzim, because of the physical armor he can grant to a team to help out with that Tracer.
Polymorph. Pulse Bomb actually missed there too, so now Cure and Friends should have an upper hand. Li Ming is still off on her own now, down in the bottom lane dealing with the Dahaka, so do we see him actually make the rotation up? Psalm receives the shield, Cattle goes in with the flying kick. She's throwing out the damage. Hook just lands on the Cattle, not the target you know Zugrug was looking for. Now June is going to start himself the first tribute. and it goes over to Tempo.
Yeah, that double support able to mitigate a lot of the damage of Team Freedom. Even though the pulse bomb initially did miss, they still had a lot of damage, a lot of brawling capabilities, and they have even more so with Kala's Light as the pickup for Tassadar this time to give armor after the plasma shield has been taken out.
I just love seeing Cattle, even just that cycle through mid, using his level 1 talent to drain a bit of ammo. You know, maybe it'll come out and benefit them later into the game. Tempo did decide to use the Task Tracer to cycle and get the Knights. Tempo is essentially just following a very standard rotation for a map like Cursed Hollow. You just go into the Giants, you go into the Knights during the second Shrine phase, or second Tribute phase. It's just a really nice way to constantly have pressure. No team is venturing in a wild way, except for maybe you could argue the Tracer invade. But if anything, that's a more calculated risk. Speaking of here, the hook not landing. Cure is looking to join in on the fun though. Whoever can clear this mid night camp first technically has a slight advantage.
The wave clear is really good between Coffin, Lux, Tassadar, as well as the Breath of Fire from Caterpillar. But a lot of Team Freedom are showing up now to battle it out, try to take those out, take out the bruisers of Tempo Storm. And the Tribute will be spawning in just a couple of seconds straight above.
It's going to be top left here for the secondary spawn, meaning the next Tribute has to 100% be in the bottom right. That's going to be a huge Tribute for Tempo, so if they pick up this one, they might be very prone to getting that first curse. Collusion gets interrupted. Cattle flying kicks away, pulse bomb out. Cure lives. The dot is there, no healing to help him out, but he does survive.
He does. He's going to have to back, though, and Team Freedom are all starting to back up. His back's going to have to cancel as Team Freedom retreat through that path, and Tempo Storm once again are able to get a Tribute. They haven't been able to get any picks yet, any kills, thanks to, or with the Tracer composition that they would maybe like, but they're able to get Tributes reliably, and they've been able to keep Fury soaking in lanes during these Tribute battles, and that has awarded them a level lead over Team Freedom as they look toward Curse Point.
Yeah, and that's what I was worried about here with Tempo Storm, is just that their macro play is so well done. They just gain every small advantage in the experience department, and it makes it so difficult for a team like Team Freedom, one that relies on their skirmishing to be able to get an advantage. You know, it's interesting because in the long run, winning a team fight is always the last thing you need to do into the game, but you can't win those without being good at the problem first. You know, the experience department and getting those small victories. So it's a really beautiful battle we see unfolding here between these teams and their strengths.
And it goes down to Tempo Storm's drafting and their ability to get such a strong 4-man composition for them with the double support, and then two brawly heroes like Chen and Tracer who are able to continue just battling and battling against Team Freedom. They're willing to do that while Dahaka continues to soak. And this time, Tempo Storm get a Tribute without any sort of fight put up by Team Freedom thanks to their heroic abilities. The first curse is achieved by Tempo Storm.
And now they're going to make a lot happen here with this. Not only do they have the pressure of the Giants on bottom, but they're dealing with the pressure of the opposite Giants on the top half of the map. Freedom is wishing they had a bit more wave clear here. They have to. The best way to stop this, if you don't have the wave clear and the small skirmishing to be able to punish Tempo, is just grouping and hoping you can force Tempo to fight you somewhere onto the map.
Sam's avoidance of magic missiles this entire game has been really impressive. Emerald Wind, chosen for Brightwing, will help out with the boss fights, being able to push people off of the bosses. It does mean that there's a less mobility, no blink heal, as well as the little bit of burst of heal that you get from that, but Soothing Mist does still get more healing, 8% more, thanks to pickup of Emerald Wind.
Tempo has got to be so satisfied with how this curse has played out so far. Even though they aren't sieging necessarily, they have managed to draw aggro into the bottom half of the map, which should allow them to cycle and be able to take out a lot on the top half of the map. They're going to opt towards the immediate boss play. We have Dahaka to be able to scout down in the southern lane. He now knows the members of Freedom are transitioning towards the boss, so it's going to be a 1-for-1 trade into the bosses. Now that this is the decision that Tempo made, they shouldn't be as satisfied. They actually didn't make that much happen. I thought they would cycle, take the top fort, and then take the boss afterwards, but now they're taking a fort that at most could get that, or a boss that at most can make the fort, and then it's going to be easy clear, and somebody's got to be dealing with this on bottom. So Freedom stalling out that Tribute, very, very well.
Yeah, they defended nicely, but Tempo Storm, it's not like they have to deal with an immediate curse on the other side from Team Freedom. It was the first 3 tributes of the game, so it was sort of some free pressure for them to get into a situation where they had 13 above Team Freedom. No kills yet in this game, and yet it feels like so much has happened because both of the teams are everywhere, with Tempo Storm largely dictating the rotations, but Team Freedom reacting appropriately, hoping to get into a spot where they can take a win.
This is actually really clever. To be able to transition the double global to be able to push with that top and then the 3-man collapse on mid.
Yeah.
But I feel like a lot of that is because Freedom decided to commit a 5-man to push boss to boss. I mean, it was just, I can understand the thought process that Freedom was essentially assuming Tempo to make a traditional poor choice of pushing with that boss as a 5-man to take out a 4th that is going to die inevitably. But because Tempo understood the trade-off of resources, they committed 3 to mid and gained far more than that of Freedom. Once again, rotations for Tempo Storm, 1 step ahead of Freedom.
Seemed just next level for Tempo Storm, but Freedom are about to get 13 and maybe an opportunity for them to get into their first 5v5 fight with their heroic abilities. It is Divine Palm for Collusion, and there's the 13 talents.
All right. Is it just me, or has it been a year since I had a tribute? Does it feel surprisingly long?
It does.
I feel like there is some fluctuation on the map objective of tributes. It's like a 30-second fluctuation, but I feel like whatever's happening here is maximum amount of time, or something about my internal curse clock is all kinds of wrong. Tempo,
You might even say that it was cursed.
You might even say it was cursed. Tempo's looking to flank Freedom up here. Illidan does not know Chen is on his chase.
Here they come in. June's on one side, and the rest on the other. There's gonna be the phase shift on top. June comes in, hoping to separate the fight out. We've got Dragon Blade though for Dansky.
Nasm is so low. The palm, does it get procced? It does.
Kira though is gonna go down. Saw him chasing him down with the help of June, and thanks to the pulse bombs, it'll be a 2-for-1 as Tracer falls.
Dansky not able to get the reset there onto June thanks to a beautiful ice block, and that allows them to be able to kill Team Freedom. Another member going down. Zugrug doing his best with that axe to chop away at Tempo, but it's gonna be 2-4-4 in favor of Tempo Storm. Now they're going to transition down to this tribute. It should be theirs. Also, they have Knights and Giants pressuring on bottom. Everything is looking so well for Tempo Storm.
Nasmus received the palm, which helped a lot initially, but Illidan going down was the first of things falling apart for Team Freedom down in the bottom. And it all went down to June, making sure that his placement was perfect for the Emerald win to split the team apart. And Tempo Storm's ability with their composition to thrive in chaos. That fight happened in so many small skirmishes, but they got the initial kill on Kier and were able to continue into the victory from there. Having a level lead now, Tempo Storm, knowing that they should fight when they had those mercenary camps pushing, their decision-making is so solid this game.
Yeah, they've done a very good job so far, and now Freedom should be very thankful that they are in a position to be able to get this 16 talent tier before the next tribute. Again, we have seen 4 tributes spawn onto the map, and every single one has gone over to the hands of Tempo Storm. That's part of the reason why they have such a structure and experience advantage, because that was really the actual first fight we had seen the whole game, and it was pretty even. Now, tribute number 2 to the top right, making the third unpredictable, so no team's going to have the major upper hand there.
No 16 yet for Team Freedom, so it'll have to be another tribute that passes them by. But it's not the worst thing for them because of that positioning, so at least the next one isn't there, protected by the rocky outcropping on Tempo Storm's side of the battleground. Team Freedom's just about to get to 16. Tempo Storm would welcome a pick if they could find somebody right before Freedom got to there, which is why we see them aggressing even further over, trying to take out Giants. Keep Freedom from being able to get any mercenary camps that would help them during the time when they'll be fighting over the next tribute.
I feel like part of the reason experience has been so hard for Freedom to actually obtain is because they are pushing the lanes out so easily into the double global of Tempo. So Tempo is fine with just Dahaka and Brightwing kind of holding their own, sitting out there and being like, well, we're getting experience that you're too afraid to move in to be able to get. And when they do get it, they just push it back out. So they lose a lot of minion waves for free. But now we do see Freedom has got that 16 talent here, and it very much will be 100% before a possible tribute point here to Tempo. It's bottom. Tempo Storm with a slight advantage in rotation, but the party shrub has been moved in through for Freedom. Tempo is not going to take it. They're going to play the 20 game. Either that or they're going to double teleport. All right, double teleport it is.
Here comes the Brightwing. Zogrug's already starting to use the Putrid Wild to set up a fortification for the team, but Tempo Storm's just jumping on top of Nasmus and don't proc the Palm. Illidan's already dead. Li Ming falls as well before any resets can be achieved, even with the Dragon Blade coming out. Now Zogrug's in danger. He'll be the next to die. Tempo Storm take out 3 in the blink of an eye.
It is not even close when it comes to these fights. I might have been wrong when I said Freedom decided to man up and just puff the chest out. Maybe that was a bit too much puffing, you know?
There's only one Palm, and currently there are 3, at least, people who need it.
Yeah, maybe a bit of miscalculation for myself, but luckily Tempo does not suffer from the same problem. They have themselves a beautiful boss primed on bottom 14 minutes in the terms of scaling. Tribute is going to be captured about as late as you realistically can, so they are going to have max value bottom, mid, and top. Expect a double keep here for Tempo.
And you know what's great for Tempo is it's not like Team Freedom are wildly out of position. It's just that Tempo is setting up the fights extremely well. They have 2 heroes that can dive in and are forgiving in doing that. Tracer and their Chin. And see, you could see how aggressive their positioning can be, and then they wait for the Palm. This time it's going to be proc, but even with that, Zugger is going to be really far forward. This time, though, at least Team Freedom are able to get 2 kills. They take out Dahaka and Chin. Team Freedom are firing back in this game number 2.
This is exactly what they needed, though. This was a moment where Tempo Storm was ready to get the double, triple keep even, and possibly threaten themselves in a position to be able to end the game. But now we have Freedom available to be able to defend more onto their base. They've only lost themselves 1 keep. It's just all about what happens with that top boss. Tempo Storm will have themselves the 20 advantage. It's just, can Freedom make a major play around that, force a panic decision on the side of Tempo? You see them rotating out, knowing that that boss is very much a possible win condition.
Yeah, they want to get to that even before Tempo Storm can get Chen or Dahaka back. Dahaka will be able to stalk in, but Chen cannot. Tempo may be able to try to push somewhere else.
Oh,
Kiri's even going to hunt in, but the stun of the boss will catch him there. Tempo has spotted this out. They would love to get a kill on Song, pulling it back in with a hook.
Hard to get, brought him the other way. He's caught out. There we go. The damage is there for Collusion and friends on that Karazim. They're now going to take the boss. Another staggered death for Tempo. 56 seconds where they're not going to have Psalm. Things are not yet in Freedom's favor, but they are far better than they should be, Gilly.
It ain't over until it's over, says Team Freedom. They get the boss just in time so that Tempo Storm can't make Freedom sit around that boss and allow bottom lane to push in along with potentially the global of Tempo Storm. Now Team Freedom can continue clearing out their base, get all the mercenary camps they possibly can, and especially push out that bottom lane so that they won't have to deal, or it won't be as much of a pressure point for them later on when they have to posture around things like a tribute.
Tributes on the bottom half of the map are a possible win condition for Tempo Storm, not the case when looking at Freedom. Well, not completely true. You know, there are some sidewall strategies with Illidan they can get away with, but it's very likely for Tempo if a full team fight happens down there versus not the case for Freedom. We have 2 minutes separating the difference between the bosses. The bottom boss, the side that is for Team Freedom, is going to spawn in 2 minutes and 17 seconds, whereas Tempo's is 3 minutes and 59. That is what we got to keep our eyes on when looking towards the later stages, because that bottom boss will spawn before Curse Point hits. And that might be a play that Freedom really uses to maybe win the game.
Tempo Storm is completely buying into their strategy of splitting the team of Team Freedom apart, getting to those targets who ideally shouldn't need the Palm, like a Li Ming. They've gotten continuous wins at level 20 for Brightwing to get 2 more Novas that deal 25% damage, but the big deal is being able to continually keep the team from being able to get back in, get back together, group up for those Karazim heals. Also will help a little bit more with the Soothing Mist heals for June's Brightwing.
Yeah, it's actually, for anybody who's never experienced the World of Emerald win against you, it does a little bit more than even just displacement. The displacement itself acts as a silence, essentially, because you can't control your hero, and it's multiple cycles. So you can't even move back in and be like, well, at least I can auto-attack. It's like, nope, it's going to crowd control you the entire duration. You're just flat useless.
And that's what I was talking about with the way that Tempo Storm can approach fights. They have 2 targets that, for the most part, can get into a position to put Brightwing right where they want them to separate things out, and then make it a not ideal person to burn Palm on. And then whether they proc it or not, they can proc it if they feel like they can just burn that target down anyway, or not proc it and then kill them immediately afterward. And there's no peaceful repose here, so every Palm matters.
40 seconds and counting before we have ourselves that bottom boss. Again, that fight, dancing around that could be the make or break moment here of game number 2 between Freedom and Tempo Storm.
Oh my goodness, Braywing's there. Cattle's gonna jump in. June is right on top of everybody.
Emerald wins, splitting Collusion away from the rest of the team. They don't have a support. Cure is trying to stay alive. They managed to get Psalm, and the Palm has not even been used yet. Actually, Zugrug keeping himself alive on his own. It is a 1-for-1.
I cannot believe that they are making this happen, but somehow, some way, Team
Palm?
Freedom are doing it, but they just lost Stitches. The Palm instead went on to Dansky, and Cattle waits it out. Swift Strike was used. Dansky is crazy low in health, so is Collusion. He has a dash, and he gets back to Dansky, but Cattle is right on the chase. June coming in with the phase shift 2. Nazmus dodges the drag. Everybody survived for so long, but in the end, Tempo Storm with one party bush caught Team Freedom making the rotation, knowing where Freedom wanted to defend, and punishes them hard to win game number 2.
Very apt that Tempo Storm wins this Cursed Hollow game by being at an area seconds before that of Freedom. Freedom is a team that we know is so reliant onto their team fighting, but Tempo Storm from beginning of end on Cursed Hollow, they just were always there a second before, always a couple of seconds thinking into the future over Freedom, and in the end gets them a rather convincing win on Cursed Hollow.
You know, Tempo Storm fans will be cheering hard for them now, knowing that they are 2 games up in this series. They had one very difficult weekend early on in Phase 2 where they lost 2 series to No Tomorrow and Gale Force Esports. And since then, they have been trying to make the necessary adjustments along with their role swap to get back to this prime form and ready for the Western Clash. Tempo Storm fans will be cheering for them, but I know Gale Force Esports is also cheering for Tempo Storm right now. If Tempo Storm's able to win the series, they'll be top seed going into the Western Clash.
Yeah, and Tempo Storm just really does look like they have kind of come into their own right now without the series. Like this is, for me, by far the most dominant version of the Tempo Storm that I feel like we've seen in a very long while, showing the growth that they've made since week 1 of Phase 2.
I am wholly convinced, but thankfully we at least will get one more game, maybe more if Team Freedom is able to start getting some victories in this series as well. They definitely have the capabilities. You cannot underestimate them, their team fights. We're going to head to a break, and when we come back, we'll have... Oh, actually, I lied. We're going to do a replay first.
Apparently, we're going to do a replay rather than the commercial. So let's get to it. I'm ready. It's the last team fight of the last game. We were just going to highlight it once more here. Taking a look at it, the party shrub is real. Immediately going in is going to be Cattle. Look at, he splits with that leaping strike, and then June into perfect position right now. Collusion is completely isolated on his own, has nowhere to be able to move whatsoever, and I have no idea how to clear my circle. And then if we continue on through, that is the thing that allows all the focus to be dropped now onto Psalm. Look at him. Everybody is like, there is no one who can save this target. Please all in. And that really was the thing that set Team Freedom behind into this fight, or maybe more so Tempo Storm ahead, because that was very much Tempo making a play rather than Freedom making a misplay.
Yeah, that separation of Collusion and then simultaneously pushing down all the rest of the members so that there wasn't even really an easy place for Collusion to dash. And then I cannot believe how long these 3 members of Team Freedom lasted, dodging everything they possibly could. Naz was being slowed down by Cawthon, but even still dodging the initial drag. But in the end, a Psy Storm sealed that fate. And Tempo Storm won the final team fight and the game.
All because of the continuous wins. Not really all because of the continuous wins. There are like ways they could have technically played around it in that little choke, but it is extremely difficult. And the coordination levels is unheard of. You would like in that shoe, Collusion has to go down. Somebody has to meet him on the edge, dash once, and then immediately hit the palm. Only way that is going to be able to work out in that fight.
Well, now we are going to a break, and when we come back, we'll have game